When his squire woke him with this god-awful noise, the young prince was dreaming about this day, just like he had for months. Now it was here, he better be ready.
You know, I was thinking to myself the other day, there just aren't enough 2D side-scrolling games about rats in medieval times. We need more games about rats. We need more medieval games about rats. I mean, we got A Plague's Tale, but that's just not enough. I want a 2D game with rats fighting with swords and shields against monsters. That's what I want. I thought it would never happen until now. I mean, we all know rats have tails, but there just aren't enough tales about rats. But now we've got Tales of Iron, a 2D side-scrolling sword-fighting medieval game about rats. And you know what? It's pretty good. So basically the king's getting old, he's a bit of an old codger and he's dying and he wants to basically save his kingdom from an entire army of monsters that's about to attack and kill everyone, and you play the young Prince Rat and your job is to live up to the king's expectations and basically lead your people to freedom.
All the prince had ever wanted was to prove worthy of his father's crown. He might be the smallest brother, but if he was prepared, he thought he had some small chance.
So at the start of the game you learn how to hack and slash, but it's not your typical button bashing game. You have to use some pretty smart strategic moves. You've got to roll out the way, you've got to thrust with your sword, you've got to slash and you've got to hack, but you've also got to parry with your shield. There's some tactics to this. It's not just your average button bashing nonsense. You've got to think about what you're doing. But one thing I did notice about the game was the cartoon style looks great.
His dream.
So pretty soon the king's dead, everything goes apeshit, and you get attacked by this giant frog-like monkey monster, and you get attacked by him and you get your ass kicked, and then all of a sudden the kingdom's on fire, and basically you're starting from scratch here. You got beat up and now you've got to fight back like Rocky against an army of monstrous cartoon creatures from hell.
The prince woke this time from a dream of blood and frog spawn, finding he had neither a crown, nor a kingdom, nor a father.
Well, that sucks ass, but you soon got your sword and you got your shield and you're back to hacking and slashing through enemies, and this is where the game really starts becoming fun. You get to take on some cool looking monsters and some epic looking boss battles in your quest to restore order to the kingdom. At the heart of this game is the combat, and hacking and slashing and twatting these monstrous cartoon creatures is actually quite fun. You've got different weapons, and each weapon gives you a different fighting style. With the sword you swing and you hack and you slash. With the axe it's heavier and more powerful. The spear allows you to stab a bit further and it gives you more range. As well as that you've got your trusty shield, and all these weapons and the style of combat makes it quite fun to play. Some might think the game gets a bit repetitive, but then so do all 2D beat-em-ups and all 2D shoot-em-ups. They're all repetitive. It's just the same again and again and again. But if you like that kind of thing, then why not? You know, if you like hacking and slashing your way through monstrous cartoon creatures, what's not to like? On top of that, you've got other things too. You can level up your equipment, you can find better weapons, and on top of that, you've got side quests, people asking you for help, people asking you to look for certain objects. All this comes together quite nicely. You can also adjust things and change your look of your character. You can change his helmet or his shield or his weapon, and all this adds to make the character more of your own. The graphics and the cartoon style look great, and they really add a lot to this game and make it look pretty impressive. Games like this are all about the boss battles, and some of the bosses in this game are absolutely brilliant. They're well created, they've got a great look, and they've really gone to a lot of trouble to come up with some really creative and diabolical looking villains in this game. Taking out bosses on this game is all about just timing, learning their style and their pattern of attack, and once you master it, you should have no trouble taking down even the biggest, baddest bosses.
This thug of a guard frog wasn't an easy kill, but it was a sweet one.
This game may be a bit of comic tongue-in-cheek, but it does take a lot from Game of Thrones and those medieval type TV shows, and it really does take itself very seriously, considering, you know, you're fighting giant frogs and shit like that. To be honest, this game is all about the combat, all about the boss battles, and that's the way it should be. But the lovely graphics and the great sound effects of the hacking and slashing, you know, really add to the ambiance of the game. The endless hacking and slashing does get a bit repetitive after a while, but if you keep playing the game in short bursts, you should have plenty of fun. And it's the boss battles, the graphics, the sound, it all comes together so well to make you feel like you're playing a pretty special game. To be honest, this game's a bit like Wind in the Willows meets Game of Thrones. It's just bloody and brutal, and yet you got, you know, giant frogs and shit in it. But you know what? I enjoyed it. Yes, like I said, the action is a bit relentless, and to be honest, and that, you know, it can get repetitive, but just the graphics, the sound effects, it all comes together so well for a nice little package. I mean, it's not the greatest 2D beat-em-up I've ever played, but I like it. I like the colours, I like the graphics, I like the style, I like the way it runs, I like the way it looks. You know, it's a good game. With the great kind of hand-drawn graphics, I mean, you could say this game has style over substance, but no, on top of having style, it's got a lot of substance too. I mean, the fighting is good, it's not just hack and slashing, there's an element of strategy, especially with the bosses, and the bosses are some of the most impressive I've seen in a game like this. I have to say, I really enjoyed it.
The Bog Brothers clan were finally destroyed. Reggie knew they would not be the last.
This game actually reminds me of the classic Castle Crushers, which was one of my favourite games. That too had a very cartoon style, and it was basically a 2D beat-em-up, and it was incredibly fun. And this game has a lot of that going for it. I mean, it does remind me of that game. In the end, I'd give this game about 85 out of 100, because it's a great game, but it's not perfect. Yes, it can get a bit repetitive, just whacking and twatting all the frogs and the bad guys, and I wish some of the enemies had more diverse attacks, but you can't fault the boss battles, and you can't fault the quality of the game, the look of the game, the sound effects. It's got a lot of tricks in its bag, and I think people would be very impressed with this game. I mean, for me, I think it's worth every penny. You know, it's only $20. It's a lot cheaper than other big budget titles out there, so, you know, why not give it a go?
The Bog Brothers were dead, and their stench would soon wash away. His brother could go home safe, and the young king would too, after making sure the roads were clear of frog scum.
Frog scum?
Reggie would need more than a sword on the road now, the ranger told him. He offered the king his best bow, a gift from his guild.